This is a two-part video about the midheaven, because I don't think the midheaven gets talked about enough, nor do I think that it's necessarily the most popular topic in astrology. That is unless if your midheaven is one of the popular signs. You know, everyone likes Scorpio. Well, everyone wants to be Scorpio, but they don't want to deal with Scorpio, I should say. That's how a lot of people are. And, Scorpio, does include jealousy. Scorpio includes revenge. So does Capricorn. But more Capricorn is more so just, sticking to principle. So, first of all, I want to say that astrology, you could say that your life doesn't happen because you insisted on it being that way. At least not at first. It's more of you were put in whatever position you were in life. And you were born kind of with sort of a set programming. Right? Some of that programming is genetic. A lot of that programming is genetic. After all, we have genetic code. And, we have a DNA sequence. We have protein sequences, the code, and then we have, we have the, we have the proteins that jump along the DNA. We have the filler DNA. That's very analogous to programming. You have sort of, your scripts, your identifiers. If you look at CSS, right, you have your identifiers, and then you have your references, your hyper references and everything. Same thing with, it's the same analogy with your genetic code, the, sequences of your proteins, DNA, RNA, all that good stuff. That is unless if you believe that it's just something that lazy people made up so they can feel better about themselves. I mean, look, it's not bad to have that belief. If you, convince yourself that, no, genetics isn't real, it's just an excuse that people made up to feel better about themselves, right? If anything, it can actually help you be more successful by having an inner locus of control. I'm just saying, look, you need to choose the beliefs that work for you, first of all right? But, so, about astrology and how it relates to you as a person, it's more of life just kind of pushed you in that direction. I'm not saying, say, if you're someone that has a lot of Scorpio in your chart, right? A lot of people like to talk about. That doesn't mean that you insist on being a manipulator or, you want to hurt people or, you're a very sexual person and you have you're a sex worker, you have multiple, baby mamas or baby daddies or, multiple kids with multiple people. I'm not saying that's because you want to have that. At least not at first. It's more of life pushed you in that direction. Along with the programming that you've received. So, same thing, it's like if you have a lot of Capricorn traits, if you have a lot of Capricorn in your chart, a lot of stuff in Capricorn or, Libra, even in Scorpio too, right? You're you believe in rules and principle. You believe rules are rules. It doesn't matter if it's, inconvenient, if it's life-threatening, if it's just a waste of time. It doesn't matter if it wastes 20 years of your life, 50 years of your life. You believe that the rules are rules and policies are policies. And if you have a lot of Scorpio, you probably also believe that people should be punished severely for not following said rules. Look. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that you like it that way. It could just be because you were born in the situation that you were. So, for instance, I have, Saturn square my midheaven. And my midheaven's in Sagittarius, by the way. And I'm not telling you which chart or house system that I'm using. I'm not telling you which house system I'm using. I'm not going to give it away to you just like that. So, I have Sagittarius square my midheaven. And because I have Sagittarius square in my midheaven, well, part of it is I was born here in the United States. And I work for the government, and even if I did not work directly for the U.S. government and the U.S. Army, I have to deal with the government on a day-to-day basis. I mean, especially nowadays with all the sanctions and the tariffs and the regulations on every little thing. You just can't get away with it. Can't get away from it. Sagittarius doesn't care. Sagittarius just wants to keep going and going and going. It's like that fire that just burns through every obstacle. There's no obstacle. I mean, you look at Sagittarius. I mean, look at the sign. It's a man with a horse's body, horse's legs, and he's got a bow and arrow, firing a flaming arrow. I mean, that's Sagittarius, destroying the obstacles, being optimistic, pushing forward. Look, Sagittarius is not a rule follower, at least not, the petty rules. Sagittarius may focus on the higher principles. Same thing, I also have a lot of Cancer in my chart, so, I can be a bit protective in regards to said higher principles. For me, if I work for a company and, my VIP or CEO is caught up in some scandal, I don't feel a need to rat him out. I mean, everyone else is doing some bullshit anyways, so, what's the difference between, I don't know, paying someone to suck your dick versus, I don't know, paying for a bunch of alcohol and getting pissed drunk and, fucking ruining your life that way. For me, it's, one and the same, right? And if you're paying someone, well, I mean, if you're paying someone to suck your dick, I mean, I guess it's a voluntary transaction between two parties, I'm just saying. So yeah, I mean, that's me. It's my midheaven. So, I think with that being said, let's talk a bit about Saturn. Oh, let's talk a bit about the midheaven. Good old midheaven. So, the midheaven is your career. That is sort of your higher pursuits. And it would make sense that the midheaven is lined up in your 10th house, because that's where Sagittarius meets Capricorn. Or it could be in your 9th house, depending on where it is. Somewhere between Scorpio and Capricorn, typically. I mean, if you're lining up the houses, along with, so I should say, somewhere between the 8th and 10th house. Somewhere along that ballpark. That little quadrant. I shouldn't say that, because not between Scorpio and Capricorn, because, we got the signs. We got the houses. That's the little Gemini talking to me with Mars. I'm just saying, guys. So, with that being said, the midheaven, so if you look at the midheaven, you want to look at how the other signs relate with that. And I've said this before, and I'll probably keep saying it again, in the Kabbalistic astrology and in the Hermetic Kabbalah, because that's what I follow, that is my main practice. More so, in the actual ritual setting, it's mostly conjuration. Like 99% of the time, it's going to be conjuration of some kind. The rest is, just getting supplies and, yeah, that is part of the magic, that is part of the ritual. So, I know Uncle Birch, he's mentioned about, I'm trying not to have too much caffeine today. I know Uncle Birch has mentioned about, retroactive manifestation and about, the non-linear timeline, the cyclical timeline. So if you look at the cyclical timeline, time isn't necessarily linear. And there's not only one timeline. You can think of timelines being sort of these seemingly parallel lines, except they have a slight curve to them, a very slight curve to them. And there's going to be times where they intersect. You think of the planes as well, right? There's intersections. Because, if you think about it, right, the only constant is change. So if the only constant is change, then the timeline can't stay linear forever and ever and ever. It's eventually going to have a little bit of curve and give to it. And if the universe is just a giant, endless ball, just infinite, well, then there's bound to be, some kind of alternate galaxy or whatever where, I don't know, there's another one of you, just like you. Maybe there's another incarnation of you and me. Maybe in this alternate galaxy, there's someone that looks just like me, sounds just like me, except they don't speak English, they don't speak Turkish, nor do they have brown hair or 6'3" or, even care about the shit that I care about. No, they could be, fucking, I don't know, whatever. Maybe they didn't serve in the U.S. Army. Maybe they didn't do conjurations or make a bunch of shitty decisions that put them in a desperate situation where they... All right, I'm going a bit off tangent here. I do that sometimes. And where are we? Oh, we're only at 11 minutes. We got plenty of time. Let's do a part 2. So, with the midheaven. So your aspects to the midheaven are going to be just like any aspects to other signs, planets, and, houses. And other points. So, if you have your fixed stars near the midheavens, that's a pretty big deal. Now, I decided I was going to get into differentiating the difference between the ascendant versus everything else in the chart. So, the ascendant is kind of who you are. That's kind of just, how you generally are. Your outward appearance, your behaviors, and pretty much everything that is happening that other people perceive you as. And there's that saying that perception is reality. So this is going to play a big role in your reality. However, we also know that one of the 4 powers of the Magus, or the Sphinx, is to be silent. To know, to dare, to will, to be silent. So that means we all have that hidden side of our lives. That part of us that most people don't know about. And quite frankly, it's none of their fucking business. Pardon my French, but usually it's none of their fucking business. I'm just saying, sometimes I could be a bit of a loudmouth myself and start talking shit. Now, I've been doing it lately. Sometimes I'll talk shit just to talk shit and stir the pot. I'm not using astrology as an excuse for what I do, but I'm going to have to do that right here. And about using astrology as an excuse for your behavior, I mean, usually it's people that just don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, they don't know anything about astrology. I mean, they know their sun sign, and that's about it. Now, I know in certain countries and cultures, they tend to focus more on the ascendant rather than the sun sign. I know in a lot of cultures, like, for them, the ascendant is more important. Or, what house their fixed stars are in. In fact, I'm going to do a little series on the fixed stars. That's a really big deal for me. That is a big one. And I think that's one that's not really talked about enough. Now, mind you, your fixed stars can be used in any system, either tropical or Vedic, or sidereal, or Egyptian, Persian, Babylonian. Now, I know that the fixed stars come from Persian astrology. However, there are a lot of fixed stars that come from Greek and Roman astrology. One of them is Sirius. I mean, I'm not going to make a pun about it, but, it's the dog star, and I have dogs, and I love them very much. I'm very much a father figure to my dogs. To my other kids, my human kids, I mean, I would love to be, but, they don't even want to tell me about it. Mom's like, no, fuck you, go away, blah, blah, blah. But who am I to interfere with their decisions? I mean, legally I can't even do much since, they are grown women and they have legal guardianship over their children, and I mean, they are my children and I love them very much and I want to be with them, but, I'm just going to have to accept that they're going to have the lives that they have. All I can do is pray for them and send some good vibes their way, or at least tell the demons to not. Don't target them, and if you are going to target them, do something good for them. Don't fuck up their lives. You want to fuck up my life, that's all right. Okay, if you hate me or, you want to punish me or fuck up my life and throw my ass in hell, do so all you want. Just don't do it to my kids. You gotta leave them alone, man. So anyways, I was talking to my dogs over there. They do that shit sometimes. So, anyways, I'm just talking shit right now. Also, I think that's about it. I was kind of expecting this to go on for maybe 20 or so minutes, but I think we're quite a bit short. So that'll be it, and take care.